Okay, so cool. Thank you everyone for joining. So today, as you all know, Gareth and myself are going to share a bit more about how to build using Softr and Airtable. As you know, Gareth is the expert in Airtable, and I hopefully am in Softr, and that we can combine our efforts and build something useful, more business types of tools, and also we'll explain what other types of tools you can build, and showcase a specific example. We will try to be very hands-on, not just really talk, but more about just building. So Gareth will spend a bit of time on building the Airtable site. I'll spend a bit of time on building the actual app. And then we will make sure to leave some good time as well in the end to ask questions, because I think that's one of the most important parts as well. So let's kick it off and let's start with intros. Gareth, go ahead. Please introduce yourself shortly, and if you want to also talk about what Airtable is, maybe in 2 words. I'm sure most of the people here know what it is, but
probably. I think everyone here is probably better at this stuff than you and I. But hey, everyone, my name is Gareth. I own a company called Gap Consulting. We're one of the leading consulting firms in the no-code space, helping our clients from building custom projects to training in terms of how you can build things in Airtable, automations, front ends in Softr and the like. That's my quick 10-second. Off to you, Mariam.
Thank you, Gareth. So I'm Mariam, one of the co-founders of Softr, and Softr is a no-code platform that uses Airtable as a backend and lets people build custom applications, portals, and all different types of apps. So to start with, I'm actually going to share my screen and just talk about really very quickly about 2-3 main use cases that Softr provides, and then copy a specific app which we're going to use so I can share the base with Gareth, and then he can continue with the build. So I'm sharing my screen. Hopefully this works. I hope you can see my screen. Gareth, maybe
looks
you
good.
not. Okay, because I can't see anyone. Cool. So real quick, so Softr, I don't know how many of you have used. So today's workshop is really intended for different types of skill sets. We will also have some others which are more intended towards narrow group of people, like people who don't know Softr or people who are more power users, and Airtable as well. Today's one is pretty generic, more includes also both types of users really. So that's why I spent just two words, say 2 words about Softr, which essentially with Softr, with really quickly in 3-4 steps, you can build an application using your base, using your database. In this case, we use Airtable as a backend. Google Sheets is coming soon as well. So first you connect your data, build your app with using building blocks, which I'll show you in a minute. Then you can add membership on top of your application, like authentication, payments, etc., roles, permissions, and then you publish your app and you have it up and running. So some of the main use cases that Softr helps you build are client, customer, partner portals, internal tools to be used within your organization with different themes, product, customer success, content, growth, and member community portals. We also have lots of communities that are using Softr to build their internal or external member communities. We also have as it's a very very horizontal platform, people build you can build any type of app. So there is also some typical use cases around marketplaces, resource directories, websites, but again, our core focus is really on business apps. And some client portal examples that you might have been building already, or you might have in your real case companies, within companies, are client portals, non-profit portals, within LPVC firms, their specific portals, student teacher portals more specific to educational institutions, broker portal, custom CRMs, etc. And for internal tools, things like team, wiki, project management, small CRMs, again, application tracking system, product roadmap, knowledge management, etc. So all these are different types of, again, different people call them differently, but these are some typical types of apps that are being usually built. And also Softr is, for example, we use internally Softr for lots of different types of internal tools, like gathering customer feedback, then planning some of our vacations, etc., etc. So that's really it. And now what I'm going to do is, so this is the builder of Softr, if I guess a lot of you already know. So for today, we are going to use a Team Wiki template, which is an internal tool under internal tool category. It's called Team Wiki. What it does is essentially it's one place for your entire team to gather all the information that your team needs to have access to do their job, whether it's employee directory, so we have different pages we can go over, or learning resources, or onboarding for HR to onboard new employees, or to submit feedback to your HR or other managers, etc. So this can be one tool where you have all of that combined. So we're going to use this template for now. I'm going to use this template, just copy it. Bear with me. I'm going to have a bit slow internet because I'm sharing my screen, I think, as well. So first of all, when I copy a template, this asks me to set up my Airtable base. And the reason being, we use Airtable for most of our applications as a backend. So all of my data is already stored in Airtable. In this case, this template comes in with its pre-built base that already has the data. You can copy it first, check it out, and then also you can replace and use your real database. So now I'm going to connect the API key first. Then it asks me to copy the base. So I'm going to go to the base. This is the one that comes with the template. I'll copy the base. That essentially gets copied into my workspace. Once it's copied, it's called Team Wiki template. I'm going to go back here, click refresh, and that's going to show up in my list of bases. I'll connect to that one, and then I'm good to go. So now I have the base copied already. The application copied, and also the base is already set up. So I could simply just publish and start using the app. But before diving in, so I want to quickly turn around to the Airtable base that we just copied, and then I'm going to hand it over to Gareth to do his magic on the Airtable side, and then we will use that base, the one that he changed. We just copied this, so he's going to make some changes on that, and then we will use that base to continue building the application side. So what this represents itself is essentially all of this data that you saw in the app. It's where it's stored. So this is the employee directory with all the people, names, images, and their departments, their roles, etc. And then we have news table, which contains all the news of the company. Team resources. These are some interesting materials that you can attach. In this case, there is no URL attached to it. It can be PDF, can be any other external URL. And there is a feedback section as well, where people can submit feedback, and it essentially ends up here. So I'm gonna share this with Gareth. And then he will do some changes on the base. Okay. So what Gareth is going to do, he will share a bit more, but essentially we're going to add additional information here that we can use on the application side. Gareth, handing it over to you.
All right.
I'll stop sharing.
Thank you.
And go ahead and start sharing.
All right. Please let me know if you cannot see my screen. But we are looking at the base that Mariam just shared. And the concept that I want to outline here today is, let's assume that we started a template. We started with this template from Softr, and we wanted to take this to customize it, add some of our own tweaks to it, because this is the real power of these no-code tools, of course, is the fact that we can build whatever we want, make it unique to our specific workflow, our specific process, etc. So let's imagine just a scenario for this company where maybe there's some sort of like company-wide training that has to be taken. And we want to track to know when the different employees have taken this training. But the training in our imaginary scenario here, maybe it needs to be renewed every 2 years. And so we could, if we were to just come up with a very simple way of doing this, we could just add a field right here in the employee directory, add a column that says, when did you take your last training? But the problem is, because they'll take their training again 2 years later and 2 years after that, we would be overwriting data, and we don't want to do that. We don't want to delete old data if at all possible. So let's instead build another table for this. So I'm going to create a table an empty table, and we're going to call it training. Maybe let's call it training log. And what I want to just see with this training log is, when is the last time everybody took their training? Pretty straightforward. Now, I've got my employee directory in a different table, and training is going to relate to that directory, right? Because when we log a new training, when somebody has taken training, you'll notice even when I try to express it without using the words, I still have to say somebody took the training, because the training isn't existing in a vacuum. And this is oftentimes one of the hardest concepts for folks when they're starting with a database, is understanding when you should start linking things together. But of course, training in and of itself is only going to be valuable if we know who took that training and when. So we build a link to the employee directory, and every record of a training is only going to include one person. So I'm going to turn off linking to multiple records, meaning that every time I log a new record in my training log, it's going to only relate to one employee at a time, right? So we can create some examples here. Here is Brooke. Brooke took a training. Jamie took a training. Kai took a training. All right. So I've got a linked relationship here. Now I want to record when they took the training, so that this will be the date of training. I can include a time, but I think the date is the most important thing. So maybe Brooke took training back in February. Jamie took training in April. And Kai, maybe he just got this done yesterday. Now what we want to do is figure out, when does this training expire? And excuse me, in our specific case, we're going to imagine that it's a 2-year expiration. So I can actually write a formula. Formulas are a really powerful part of Airtable that are going to allow us to calculate things automatically based on other pieces of information. And so we can simply say, well, yeah, we want to build a formula in this case, and forgive me if I'm going quickly. You can always go back and watch the replay again. But the concept here is, there are hundreds of different formulas. The more you use them, the more confident and comfortable you'll be with them. But I'm going to use this date add formula here. And I'm going to reference this little bubble on the side, which is going to give me some tips on how I can write a good formula. And it's telling me, when you use the date add formula, you need to include a date time, a count, and then a unit. For example, and you can see this little one down here, it says you could take a deadline -2, and the unit being weeks would calculate 2 weeks prior to whatever that deadline is. So simply put, I want to calculate 2 years. So here's my date of training. That's the date I want to start with. Comma separates my different variables inside of my formula. So my date of training, that's my first one. My next one is the count. Count is 2, comma again after that. And then the unit I have to put inside of quotations, either single or double quotes. And in this case, it'll be years. Pretty straightforward there. I have to make sure to close out my parenthesis. And hopefully I did everything right. It looks like I did. So we can see that it's automatically adding 2 years to whatever that date of training is. So I don't need that time. I can come into the formatting and get rid of the time, include it, use Greenwich Mean Time here, and we should be good to go. Everything is working perfectly. Cool, so that's it for the training. Now what I can do is determine what is the status of this training. And we can use a formula for this as well. We can say something like, if today is before the expiration date, then this training is valid. If today is after the expiration date, then of course the training is expired, right? So that's how we would say it in just plain English. But we could say in terms of writing a formula, we would say if today, this calls upon the actual date. If today is, let's see, less than expiration. Whoops, not exponent. Let's get expiration in there. And oftentimes when I'm writing a formula, because I want to kind of test it step by step as I'm going along, I'll put placeholders in there. So I'll say if today is less than expiration, comma 1, otherwise comma 2. So if today is less than the expiration date, then I'll put out a 1, otherwise I'll put out a 2. I can create this formula and I get a bunch of 1s, right? Because of course our expirations are 2 years in the future. So let's pick another one here and create something for Danny. And I'm going to go with, January 1st, 2019. And you see that, first of all, this calculation is going to take just a minute for Airtable to think. Now it's right, but my status is different, right? This is an expired one because it knows that this training expired back in 2021. Danny should have taken another training already. So rather than saying 1 or 2, I can come back in and edit my formula. And instead, I'll say not a 1, but current. And I'll go over to 2 and replace it with expired. Now we get a nice little formula that's outputting that. Now I want to be sensitive in time, so I'm going to start moving a little fast here just so I can showcase a quick. Actually, Mariam, I think I'm going to skip the automation just in the nature of time and just build the lookup that you need in your part. Is that okay with you?
Go ahead. You could add the field in employee directory, and then I can just show that in the app.
Perfect. Will do. I'm going to really quickly give this a name or a primary field. That's your leftmost field. I really like to use formulas in this field in particular. I'm going to use a concatenate, which strings together multiple pieces. I'm going to take the employee name with a space dash space, and I'm going to wrap this with a date. I want to bring in the date of the training, the date the training was taken, but just using that date by itself is going to produce a nasty output because I first have to format it. So I'm going to wrap a format in here, take my date of training. Lowercase L is a standard month, day, year format. Close my 2 parentheses, and I should be good to go. So this is giving me a nice little ID. This training log right here is for Brooke when she took training on Feb 1st. And I realize we have an international audience, so I should specify that we are, in this case, I think I'm using the local date format here, month, day, year. Okay. So let's get back to the employee directory. I want to know this for the employees, but let's take a look at Danny real quick and I'm going to build my outlier case here for Danny. Danny took this training back in 2019, and then Danny took the training again in 2021 to renew this. So let's track this. That changes the expiration date, and now Danny has a current one. But I have 2 records for Danny. How do I look up the right one? That's what we're going to do really quickly here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to build a new view here so that I can have my own view. This is going to be Gareth's sandbox. So I don't mess anybody else's stuff up. Always create a new view. That's a little tip for you. I'm going to hide all this information, and I'm going to bring in a new field. My new field is going to be max training date. I'm going to use a roll-up field type, and this is going to look at the linked relationship that we have to the training table, the training log. So I'm looking at the training log, and I'm saying, hey, I want to bring back the date of training, but not all of them, only the biggest one, right? Because we know Danny has 2 trainings. I only want the biggest date back for Danny. So Danny's only going to show me the largest date here because I've used a roll-up field. Okay, this is going to get a little complicated, but again, we're recording, so we can always go back and watch it again. Now I'm going to take this date and bring it back to my training log, max date. I'm going to look it up. I can only have 1 value per employee back on my employee directory because I've used the max function. So I'm going to take that max training date back here, right? And you'll see that in this case, in all cases, it's going to match the date of training, but only the biggest date of training. And if I group by employee, this will become more clear. I've got 2 dates of training for Danny, but I'm only looking up the max date that we brought into the directory. So now using this date, I can check to see what the current status is. So the our recent status, I'm going to write a formula here that simply says if the max date, that is the field that we've calculated here that we've looked up, if it's equal to the date of this training, then tell me the status. And you'll see that in this case, we have nothing because the max date is not the same as the date of expiration. I'm sorry, forget expiration. The max date is not the same as the date of training. And so there's nothing here. And so I only see their most recent status. And this is something I can look up for Mariam, and she'll now be able to use it in her build. So I'm going to look up recent status. This is my training status. Look it up. This is how we, build relationships, or this is why we build these relationships back and forth, because we're able to pass this information back so easily. So now I have the recent status. And if I were to, just as a test here, you see Danny's status is current. But if I were to go into my training log and remove this particular instance, let's just delete this record. You see that Danny's training is expired, which then means that Danny's most recent training date is 1/1/2019, which is what's going to show up right here. And we see that Danny's training is expired. So we're able to see everything. I've already probably gone over time. Mariam, I'm so sorry. I'm going to hand it on over to you.
That was awesome. Thank you, Gareth. I guess the only challenge now I have is that field needs to be linked in the other view as well, so I can use it in employee directory view. Should we add that back to that view as well, or it's actually automatically going to be showing up? No, it won't.
You want it in the all employees view? Is that what you were saying?
Exactly. Or
oh, sure.
Just copy it.
Looks like it's already there.
Okay. Yeah, you added the field, so it's not hidden there. Exactly. Cool. Thank you so much, Gareth. So after the Airtable magic, now I'm going to go back to Softr. Let me share my screen. So can everyone see my screen back? Okay. Let me know if you can't see my screen. So so now we have the app, which is, we said it's connected to the Airtable base. Now I can see the changes as well that Gareth made. So let's just check that recent status is also showing up here in my employee directory in all employees view. That's what I'm going to use for the app. So now let's get back to the app, and let's first of all have a look at how the app looks like, what it does in general. So this is the home page. This is the first page when I'm not logged in as a manager, as anyone in the app. So I'm going to see the login screen. So in this case, we have two different roles in Softr app that have been created that are differing with their permissions. So one is a manager, the other one is employee. So managers can see everything. They can add new employees. Employees, however, cannot add new other employees. They can only view information and potentially update their profile as well. So when I sign in, so this is the homepage I'm redirected to, which shows all of the information of the company news, employee directory, as mentioned already. So let's just navigate to employee directory. So here is where I see all of my employees. So the other area, let's just have a look at all the pages and go back to the building. So here is where I'm seeing all the news of the company policy. I can download any kind of information that's linked here. I can leave a feedback for my HR manager or for my manager. Then there is an onboarding section as well, where if I'm the manager, for example, I could also add new employees and then keep the progress up to date using a Kanban board that we have as well as a blog. So now what I want to do is using this directory of employees, we want to have an overview of which employee is in which training. And potentially, if there's time left as well, we can create another page, which essentially lists all of the trainings currently available in the company and see where each person stands on. So if we go back to the editor, so when I copy the app, so let me just walk you through what comes with it. I get all of the pages of this application already pre-created. They're already pre-made, and I can always change them. I can always change the designs, colors, and all of the data that's coming from Airtable. So now if I navigate back to employee directory, so here is how it's made. So first of all, I also want to take the chance to just quickly introduce how the blocks are working in Softr, because being mindful of some of you might not have necessarily an experience using Softr before. So the way in Softr we build an app is using building blocks. So everything that you see when I'm navigating is a building block. And there is two different types of building blocks that the platform offers. Some are static, which are things like headers, hero section, which are static for building your public pages most of the time. And then there is dynamic pieces, which are the points, which are the blocks, which are connecting to data and visualizing some of your data to the front end. So there is different things that we provide, things like, custom forms. So you don't have to use our Airtable forms, but you can have your own custom forms to submit more, to have your branding in the app and to match with the other design. Then there is user accounts. There is different ways you could let your users to sign up or sign in into the app using simple sign-in forms, as with SSO, with OpenID. You could also use magic links. You could let users sign in with SMS code, etc. There is lots of different variants. Then you could also let people pay through the app. We integrate with Stripe, so people can directly automatically pay their invoices, or you could also even offer SaaS pricing. So there is one-off or SaaS subscriptions you can provide in your application. Then the list, for sure, the list blocks that we offer, different designs and variations, list details, which is for showcasing when I click on a specific employee profile, I could also see more information there. So there is different options as well to showcase that. Then table blocks, calendar, I'm going to go very quickly on this. Kanban boards, charts, we also offer different ways to visualize your information for especially dashboard-like applications, organization chart, and comments. So you also can let your users comment in your application and reply back, and all those comments can either be stored in your Softr app, in Softr directly, or in your Airtable if you prefer so. So as you see now, there is this page. So now what I'm going to do is just removing this page, so we can go over and explain how the mapping to the Airtable base works. And then we also will create the sign-in, sign-up membership functionality from scratch. So for now, I'm going to add a dynamic list block that shows all my employees. Let's say we choose this one. And then what I need to do is first choose the base. So we have already connected our application to the Airtable, right? So I added the key, I selected the base that I'm going to use. Now that's why it's already available here. If it wasn't connected, it would just ask you to connect from this screen again. So now I'm going to select the employee directory. So I'll select the default view of, I don't have to select the view by default. It's going to take the default view. But in this case, let's just choose the all employees, which also has the fields that we need. And then you could, of course, decide on the design, etc. Let's go quickly on that. Here, there is an important part, which is letting your users see either all the data coming from the employees field or only seeing part of the data. So in this case, unless you specify any condition, it's working like in Airtable, then you're going to see all the employees. So let's say if you wanted your specific employee to log in and only see their team members, then you would have a condition which filters out and only shows the members who belong to their own team. In this case, let's leave it empty. So one thing that we want to do is we could add the filters on top that let you filter quickly through all these employees. And then also we need to do the mapping of the fields from your Airtable to the base. So let's quickly go and add, let's say we want to filter by office as, let me see if I have the office or location here. So let's say one is the location, one of the categories. And then the other one, I'm going to move it again up to be on the top, so it looks better. And then the second category, let's use the role. So I can also filter by role. So I think it's the title. So you also can immediately see, okay, I don't think we have titles. So now in order to check which fields we want to use, department, we can just go back simply. Okay, so it's also nicely showing here already all the departments. Why? So now the next thing is I could also decide if I want to show search bar or not. Let's leave it for now. And let's say we want to perform the search by name of the employee and by location. And then simply I'm going to map all my Airtable fields, the corresponding fields to the front end. So in this case, these are all the fields coming from Airtable. You see the same names. the same field names. So I'm going to use the name of the person for now. I don't know if the name was correct one. So let's see the name, the location. Yeah. For some, okay, this is the incorrect one. I'm going to remove this. Okay, sorry, this was the image, supposed to be the image. So it can't be mapped to the, so photo, first of all, and then I'll show the name of the employee. So as I say, essentially, it's really as simple as just mapping your fields, the ones that you want to showcase here. Title. And now let's show also the field that Gareth just added. So let's say training status. Let's add a new field. And then below, you're gonna see the training status, recent status, I think. Let me see, which view was that? I think I'm not. Oh, this is not the correct Airtable, sorry.
There you go.
This is the right one. This is the, if you have too many Airtables and too many things. Sorry, I'm going back and forth. So it says recent status, the field, the rollup field, the lookup field that Gareth created. So now we're going to use that. And this already shows current, or was it empty, or was it, yeah, expired. If it's, we could also calculate and say, okay, the empty just means that there is no training day. This person hasn't done a training. Cool. So now we have that information as well. So let's quickly just publish changes, check out, and I'm being mindful of time, how much is left. So now if you navigate to directory, which is supposed to list all of these employees, now we can see all the employees, we can see their information and training status current. So one thing that is also very handy is when I click on a specific profile, I want to see the profile details. So the way to achieve that is essentially here, when you scroll down, there is an on-click area defined where you can define what happens when someone clicks on this card. So in this case, we can say open, I don't know, why is this not working? Okay, we want to open a page which we want to link this to the employee details page. And now let's check what the employee details was. This was already created because we already copied it from the template, but you could simply just create another page which uses one of these list detail blocks. So if you navigate to dynamic blocks, there's list details, which is the one that you could use for showcasing all the details. So now if I have linked already, so let's publish and see if the changes are applied. So now if I click on this card, I should go to the employee details and see more information. We could of course add the training status here as well. So one other thing really quick to go over is to explain how you add membership to your application, but maybe actually let's cover that as well, and then let's jump into questions right away. Would be easier to cover things that you're most interested in. So in this case, when I'm not logged in, let's log out for a minute. So in this case, by default, the application brings you to the login page, because if you're not logged in, it's going to redirect you to 401 page. So this is a bit more complex version, but by default, let's do the following. So homepage is always the homepage of the application. So in this case, let's say homepage should be visible to everyone. So what I'm going to do is create a page which is visible to non-logged in users, so everyone visiting your app, and then you can control then who logs in and they see a different information. So now we have the homepage by default shows up always when you open your app. We have a header, which as you see, there is an icon here. So in Softr, every blog or every page can have visibility rules. The way to control it is there is this icon here. When you click on a specific blog, each icon showcases which users are going to be able to see that block. So in this case, it says logged in users. This section as well is now for logged in users. Let's show it to all users. And this section, which is a company specific information, let's just show it to logged in users. So one thing as well, when what I would like to do is when I open the home page, if it's a non-logged in users, I don't want them to see these links, right? So now let's just change that. I just duplicated the header. So I'm going to say the second header, which I copied, is going to only be visible to non-logged in users. Oh, sorry, to all users. Actually, no, sorry, non-logged in users, because the logged in users would need to see the other one. And then I'm going to configure how it looks like. So I'll remove all the links because I don't want them to see the company information if they're not logged in. I won't show the profile. And then I'm just going to have a button which says sign in. So in this case, there is no page yet created for sign in, right? So let's assume the old page isn't there, and I'm going to create this entire membership from scratch. So in order for your members to be able to log in into the app, we are going to create a new page, which is called sign in. And in the sign in page that we just created, I'm going to add one of the sign-in blocks. So here under user accounts, I'm going to choose a simple sign-in form and simply just configure. I could add the change the text, the logo, etc. And then after sign in, it's going to be taking this. It's going to redirect me to the home page. I don't want to show the sign up because these are all internal users. I don't want everyone externally to sign up. And then let's just copy the user information we already have. So we can use login with that information. Okay, let's go back to sign in. Again, I'm just going to add this here for us to remember later on to sign in, to use for sign in. So now we have our sign in page, but we need to tell the system to show this page when the user clicks on sign in. So let's go back to the home page. So when my user lands into this page, I'm going to link the sign in block, sign in button to the page that I just created as sign in. So let's publish our changes. And one other thing which is important to understand is how these users are signing up, right? You could have a sign up block where you just let every user to sign up. And once they sign up and create a new account, they would automatically appear under this users table. If you do not provide a sign up, then you could simply create, for example, you could also have your own user base, let's say in Airtable, created beforehand. And then you just need to import or sync those users with your users table in Softr. So there is a sync in between. And then after the application is published and your users are signing up, then they are going to appear here. So you could either, if you need to create new users, you could also add new users here and they will add back to the Airtable. The vice versa we're working on. So once also you add users in your Airtable, then they will also automatically be added here pretty soon. So these are just to explain how the users signing works. So this is the home page that I just published. It's by default showing only this part. You see, I'm not seeing the other part, which is for showcasing all the detailed information and not the other header. So once I click sign in, let's use this user for signing in. I sign in is going to redirect me to the home page. Again, actually, essentially the same page, but the difference is that now it's showing different blocks to me as a logged in user, right? So I'm seeing the other header, I'm seeing the same information here, but also see this additional page that I couldn't see as a non-logged in user. So this was the simple way to showcase how to list all of your information to the front end and how it appears here in a more visual way. You could, of course, do much more with it. So let me quickly just also explain about the user roles and permissions and then go back to the questions. So in Softr currently, as I mentioned, there is managers and admins. In this case, that's controlled so you essentially create what types of user groups and what types of permissions your application can have. In this case, if you navigate to user group, you're going to see all those groups created already because we just copied the template. So by default, you have the logged in users as one group, and then employees in this case are simply just all of the employees listed in your employees table in Airtable, which not have an executive role. And then the managers you could see is the ones who have executive role. You could have much more conditions here around different types of users. Let's say some team group, some team being one group, or other types of users. And then for permissions as well, one thing that we didn't cover is you could also let, so software apps are all interactive, both way interactive. You could also let users to update information in their application. So let's say I am going to a specific profile as a manager. I could simply click an edit button here and edit all this information from my application without having to have access to the Airtable data. So that is controlled by edit permissions. So essentially, when you define user groups, you could simply create new edit permissions. In this case, it's when you create a new edit permission, you essentially tell the system what table and which fields can the user edit when they're logged in. You can have those controls on field level and also granular record level. So in this case, for example, I can edit all of the, let's look at this one. Employee directory. I have access to edit all of the employees and all the fields. I could simply just switch this off and define one by one all the fields. Or I could also define which records I have permission to edit. One example could be if I log in as an employee, I can only edit all the tasks that are assigned to me, but not everyone else's tasks. And that's also controllable here by permissions. So I'm going to stop here because there's just too much to talk about, but I won't manage within this time frame. So hopefully this just gives a quick overview of having your base, showcasing your application, how it can visualize your information, how you can update information from your app to the Airtable base. And then any changes you make on Airtable can also stay private, and you only let the users who are outside your organization do things that just matter to them. Or even within your organization, if you don't want everyone to get access and edit information in Airtable, then you can control that as well through the app. So that's really it. I'll in the end, I'll add some more things that we are planning and working on currently, but let's open it up for questions. I'm gonna stop sharing for a moment.
We've got a lot. So early question about mobile. You guys made an announcement today. I'm excited about it. Do you want to talk to it?
Sure. So it's actually still in product hunt. So we are featuring #1 so far, but happy to have your support if you are all interested. Head back to product hunt, search for Softr, and yep, you could also support us there. So essentially what it does is now the application that we just built, we could simply with a click of a button turn it into a progressive web app, mobile, but a progressive web app. So what that means is it's a technology that lets all your application to look and work as mobile application. However, the only difference is that you don't publish, you don't submit and wait for an approval from App Store or Google Play for your application to be published, but rather you just simply can use a link and then ask your users to open the link that's going to let them download the app into their mobile. It's still going to look like the normal application in your mobile, and it's going to, yeah, so when you open, you can directly do all the same actions through the mobile app. Soon we are also adding push notifications, so a bit more, some more things very, very much related specific to the mobile experience. So that even makes it even more, intuitive.
We have a question about conditional forms. I know that you can't put conditional questions into forms just yet, but I'm wondering if that's on your roadmap.
Yeah, two big things that I wanted to share, actually three big things that are currently work in progress. So first, different data sources, one being Google Sheets, which is currently work in progress. And as you probably all know, we want Softr to be a completely data agnostic platform. So by the end of the year, we'll connect to hopefully hundreds of other data sources. The first one is going to be Google Sheets that we will release, and we will let everyone know to test it out as well. The two other more important, bigger features are first, the conditional logic, and just new version of forms. So currently custom forms can can let submit information, new information in Airtable, then also let you submit hidden fields that help you connect, essentially make relational fields as well to the other tables. What we are improving and adding is conditional logic. So depending on specific thing that you selected in one form field, then some other areas will appear, some other fields you can select or not. And also there will be different types of forms. Will be stepped forms, like if you want to use for onboarding, or normal form, or etc. So these are different improvements. And then the second part is as well action buttons. So all these things which I mentioned, you can right now perform actions from your Softr app in two ways. One, you could just simply let users edit information. And second, you could also have buttons which trigger automation through Zapier and Integromat. But what we are also doing currently is that we want you to be able to directly do a lot of these actions performed directly to your Airtable base. So things like CRUD operations, like creating currently is only done through custom forms. You could just click now a button with action buttons that adds information to your base, or updates information, deletes information, etc., or even updates just a specific field, and you immediately see the result in the page. So let's say you have a button which says approve, and then the task is approved, or you have something that changes the status right away. And also it will be possible to trigger other webhooks as well. So that's on the action buttons, and that's going to essentially help eliminate the need to go through Zapier or other automations to do the same simple step of updating information.
That's cool.
Yeah. What were the other questions? So let me just quickly go over conditional filters. We went through how to delete an account. So currently the way to delete things is essentially when you click on a button, you can mark them as deleted, and then they won't appear in your view. So you could have a view that always shows not deleted items. It's security wise, it's protected. It's never going to surface any deleted items because it's all backend filtered. All of the filtering that you're doing is backend filtered. So even if it's not a simple JavaScript that just hides your deleted items. So that's kind of a workaround until we have this delete function specifically directly in the app. Can you give certain permissions perhaps to a specific field, to individuals rather than a group? So it still will go through a group. So the current approach we are taking is you still have to define it as a user group. Maybe it's one person, maybe it's two, but you define a user group, and then per user group, you can have one field access or as many as you like. When will the new app notifications be available? The email says coming soon, coming soon. So hopefully in the next month or two, we have tons of things running in parallel and working on, but hopefully in the next 1 or 2 months. I hope Arthur doesn't kill me that I said this. Now we have to do it in 1 to 2 months. So do you have a time frame for integrating conditional forms in Softr? Yes, so currently it is work in progress. Hopefully in the next month, we are hoping to have a first version. So a lot of these things are depending on also a lot of this redesign that's going on in the platform. As you know, a lot of the, there's some old parts that are in Softr that are not intuitive, not easy to use. So we are actually reworking that, and then on top adding all this new functionality. So the plan is in the next 1 to 2 months, there should be the first version of the conditional forms. Are there records on Airtable that would not be available on Softr? For example, a rollup of a rollup. I don't know what that is. Rollup of a rollup.
I think they're saying if you, you'd have to pass it multiple times between different tables, but yeah. Are there any types of fields that don't get brought into Softr? I've never experienced
button
that
type
issue.
Field doesn't come in as a button type.
That's true.
We haven't connected yet. There is some fields like a date, or sometimes there is some which actually are mapped as text. So we're working on improving those. They also, some of the difficulties are that just the API is sometimes pretty cumbersome as well, and sometimes it just does not give you all the information you need to identify what type of element that is on the front end. So we kind of try to identify that on our end in Softr app. So mostly it's, yeah, bottom fields, I would say. And the formula fields, again, for example, are not going to be showing as a formula, but rather as a text field. So even if it doesn't directly comply with the same type, but it's still going to show up as a text in worst case scenario. Link to multiple Airtable bases in the same software app. Yes, definitely. You can do this from the day one. In the future, as well as we release Google Sheets. So the idea is that in one application, you can actually connect to different types of data sources even. So it doesn't have to be from Airtable. Can be maybe one page comes from Airtable, the other page from Google Sheet, the other one completely from a REST API. Does Softr API have an API, or changes are happening on Airtable's API? On the Softr app, where does the feedback go to? Are the users accessing one domain? On one domain, can you build tabs that references tables and interfaces? So login portal, then site tabs. I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but I guess so. Regarding Softr API, the current API lets external parties use this API and create users automatically. Let's say there's companies who do not want to let their users, directly sign up with Softr. They rather have SSO or something else. They will use the API to create those users, and those users will appear in your Softr app, so they can always log in the app. That's the API currently that we provide. Anything that we showcase or in the Softr app, it's all done through using Airtable API. So we never, also that's important, we never store your data. The only thing that we keep in Softr is the email, the name of the person, and the password encrypted version, because you don't want to store passwords in your Airtable base without encryption or something. So that's the only thing that will stay in Softr, but then the rest, everything is all directly in sync, real time, read from the API. So anything you change in Airtable is appearing here, the vice versa. How can I show, if this wasn't the question, or I didn't understand it in fully, please send us a message on the support chat as well. Happy to follow up. How can I show only records less than 2 months old in my Softr app? So currently you would have to do it through a view. You could create a view in your Airtable and then just use that view in your Softr app. There's no way to filter by date, but that's something currently we are working on actually. Or how can I create a database that only has the previous 2 months records from another DB based on current date? Again, anything related to date filtering, you currently have to do it through Airtable filtering and then have a view that shows in Softr, but that's again improving. It's essentially our current custom filters, conditional filters are just supporting several only, not all the data types. That's the reason, yeah, currently it can't be done. I'll hold you to this. I don't know what was this about. So do the Softr forms get timed out? For example, we have technicians out in the field and they usually get timed out of Airtable forms and lose their information. This is very frustrating for them and is counterproductive. No, we don't have anything like that for the forms. Unless they, for some reason, they log out of Softr, which is something that we don't do automatically, as far as I'm aware. I can double check that, but actually, no, this is a specific feature that some of the customers require, and this is also something that we are going to offer in the enterprise version, automatic logout in case you want to, but by default, it doesn't log out anyone. From a data security perspective, we know Airtable is secure for PII. Is the same true of Softr? Yes, as I mentioned, we don't store any data, so we only store the emails and passwords encrypted. So yes, and also I think what's important is we are German Berlin-based company, so by default we have to be compliant with all the GDPR and legal rules, etc. So yes, so we are very, very serious about all those topics as well. Hello, both of you. Do you plan to have any community built blogs in the future? Could be nice to add extra design capabilities to our projects. Thanks for the presentation. Yes, Julian, we are going to have that, not in the near future, but yes, in the future. So one of the plans that we have in terms of our platform building is we will have something called component marketplace type of place, where essentially everyone externally, every external developer can create their own blogs, and that would be available in the marketplace for everyone to reuse in their own apps. So yes, that's kind of in the plan, but not proactively working on that yet. So what are some best practices for ensuring that the connection between Airtable and Softr is secure? Are there certain actions, fields, or permissions that we should look out for? So the main issue that might arise is, unless you have to be very careful of which pages you want to keep public, right? Which pages or blogs you want to secure by login or other user group information, essentially not the paywall, but authentication per user group, or login, not login information. So by default, every filtering, everything that's happening on Softr side is done backend on the backend. So I won't mention kind of concrete names, but there is tools, for example, that people use on different websites to hide information, right? So they kind of add membership on top of your app. But again, what it does essentially is using JavaScript to hide some of the information on the page. And if you are a bit tech savvy, you could just open it up and see all the content. So that's not how it works in Softr. It's essentially all the filtering is done backend wise. And you won't be able to get access to the things that you have already designed to be hidden from the users. The only question is you have to be designing the app in a way that it certainly doesn't show some of this information to the public. So for example, the employee page that we created, it is a link in the header. So if you do not show the header to the users, then they won't see that. But let's say in case they open it through URL like softr.io, whatever /employee directory. If you haven't set visibility rules for this page to be only visible to the logged in users, then someone could open that page. So there is that level of security that you have to set. You have to specifically define that this page shouldn't be accessible, even if I just open it through a URL. In this case, if you do, then there is no issue anymore.
Mariam, I think we've got through all the questions in the Q&A section, but I did see a bunch in chat. But since we're at time, what's the best way for people to reach out if they have questions? Do you want them in Slack?
Yeah, absolutely. So feel free to reach out to us on our Slack community. So on our website, you will see a community page where it's also linking how to join the Slack community. That's very active, about 2,000 people already helping out each other, or directly send us a message on the customer support chat, where we are also very actively supporting our, everyone that is using Softr. So definitely follow up if your question hasn't been answered. But I guess being mindful of everyone's time, we should probably finish it off, and then if there's any other questions, also feel free to drop me a message if you want direct message as well.
I have one more question for you. If folks have specific things that they want to see in upcoming webinars, I know some people were saying that there were some more advanced things that they were interested in. Where should they submit those requests? Yeah,
that's a really good point. We actually do not have a page to submit that information, but I would say just send it over to me, Gareth, or in our customer support chat or in Slack. Actually, probably a good way would be for us to create something in Slack, a group or something for people just to really even vote and send us what specifically they're looking for, because that has been a question for us as well internally, what types of workshops we organize, what types of webinars. And yeah, we'll get back to you as well and ask for your feedback, or just send us your thoughts of, is it something that more beginner stage, or are you interested more in detail and more powerful features?
Definitely. Thanks, everybody. This is fun.
Thank you, everyone. It was great. Thank you. Bye-bye. We'll send the recording to everyone afterwards.
Cool. Thank you.